It's Do Time with Pastor Steph.
Morning, rise and shine. You're on with this Due Time with Pastor Steph. How are you this morning? That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. For this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So, where were you yesterday? Yesterday was Let's Talk About It Tuesday Church Folk Day, and we had an edition of My 2 Cents. Yes, there was Brother Ainsley Shanties, Pastor Vinny, Pastor KL, and myself, and we reviewed the Netflix movie Ruth and Boaz, and we compared it to the story that's biblical. You know, a lot of times they make these movies and you're wondering where in the world are they getting their source from, because what we're reading is very different. Well, we were pleasantly surprised to read and to see in the movie that it actually had a great deal of likeness. It was true to the story of Naomi and her mother-in-law Ruth, and the fact that there was a loss of Naomi's husband and son, and she only had one son here, and they weren't married, but they were dating, Ruth and her son, and she did move away, and they did meet Boaz, and it was very much in a great comparison to the actual biblical story. And a wonderful conversation ensued as we were able to kind of cull out some true to life issues. And one of the issues that we did raise was the fact that, you know, women don't actually like to start with a man who's coming from the ground up, because Boaz in this particular account actually had his father's wine vineyard and was very successful. And in the in the biblical story, it wasn't quite that way. So I did ask the question, you know, what do you think is the issue with women wanting to start with a man from the ground up? Well, that's not always the case, because a lot of women don't mind starting with a man from the ground up, but most times they run into a problem of, yeah, he's fine from the ground up until he gets somewhere, and then he kind of forgets who helps to get him there. So that was a very interesting conversation. Well, the best part about it was we did have both sides of the fence here talking yesterday. We had our men and we had our women, and the men raised a very good argument. And one of the things was, you know, hey, they are looking at us and they're seeing that we're accepting of a lot of issues, and then when we stick around long after we should be gone, now we're not so happy. So yeah, there's a lot of dynamics that you can pull into this particular conversation. Well, I gotta tell you, it was so good. We almost went into a 3 hour episode yesterday. Yeah, well, it wasn't bad. There were no complaints, and we still had viewers at the end of that 2.5 hour, 45-minute marathon. So if I were you, I'd go back and I check it out because it was definitely worth the watch. So if you cannot watch, but you can listen, make sure you check us out on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Yes, because you definitely want to get in on that conversation, and yeah, comment. We can still see your comments. I got to go back and read them. I'm not, it's not live, but I do go back and I check it out. And, listen, comment, because you never know what can stimulate a new episode conversation. Yes, we want to hear from you. Don't hesitate to DM me. Yes, Coach for Christian Life on Facebook, and throw me a suggestion. Okay, all right. Well, today is Wow Wednesday, y'all. We are halfway through the week, the 8th of October. Oh my goodness, time is flying by. Well, we're coming back to the socially conscious segment, but unfortunately, we don't have our girl Vivian in the house today. She's not doing so well, and we're gonna miss her. But as God always has it, there's always a ram in the bush. So make sure you go get that healthy breakfast. Make sure you go tell somebody, anybody, everybody that it's Due Time with Pastor Steph is on. And whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because we will be right back.
Born into slavery in Crawford County, Arkansas in July 1838, Bass Reeves endured a challenging childhood. His early years were marked by forced labor and violence, but he secretly honed skills that would define his legacy: fluency in multiple Native American languages, sharpshooting, and tracking. These were talents learned while escaping bondage during the Civil War to live among Seminole and Creek nations in Indian Territory in Oklahoma. These survival skills, paired with his imposing 6 feet 2 inches frame, forged him into a frontier polymath. In 1875, Reeves made history as the first black deputy U.S. Marshals. Tasked with taming the lawless Indian Territory, Reeves became a living legend over his 32-year career. His record remains unmatched. He made 3,000 arrests of outlaws and countless warrants while covering over 75,000 square miles of rugged terrain. He famously used disguises, a beggar, farmer, or cowboy, to infiltrate gangs, once arresting 19 horse thieves in a single mission. Reeves commanded both respect and fear, but was equally renowned for his sense of fairness. Many outlaws chose to surrender without a fight, knowing he was a man who didn't tolerate foolishness. Despite countless gunfights, Reeves was never wounded, and his meticulous evidence collection ensured that he had a 100% conviction rate with no case overturned. Even more fascinating is that many historians
Good morning, and good morning again. Welcome back to It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. And it is Wow Wednesday, everybody. Yes. Thanks be to God. While everybody else is trying to figure out what they're going to do today to get through to the rest of the week, God has given us Wow Wednesday. So make sure you check in, because I want to give you a shout out this morning. But the only way I know you're in the room is if you let me know. Okay? Well, we got a check-in from our girl, Ketty. Good morning, Ketty. Thank you so much for joining us. Our Lady Tamika. Good morning, Lady Tamika. Thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to talking to you in a little while. We got a check-in from our boy, Serge. Hey, Serge. Thank you for joining us. We got to check in from Majesty. Good morning, Majesty, and a belated happy birthday to you. Okay. I would sing, but I don't want to, wow you so early in the morning with my beautiful vocal chops. So I'll, I'll kind of, you know, fall back a little bit so you can, so it's just a little too early for that. I don't want to set you up for the rest of the day. I'll call you later and I'll sing. Okay. Okay. Well, I know Miss Grace is laying back in the cut, so I'm going to say good morning to Miss Grace. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, we must say good morning to the ladies that hold it down and keep us running Monday through Friday and sometimes on Sunday. We got our girl Shantice. Good morning, Shantice. Look forward to chatting with you. And we got our girl Anika laid somewhere up in the cut. Hey, Anika. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you're feeling better. And everybody wish Vivian a speedy recovery. Hope she's feeling better soon. All right. All right. Well, it's about that time for Socially Conscious, and our girl Shantice is filling in. So let's say good morning to Shantice. Good morning.
Good morning, Pastor Steph. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you, Shantice?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good. And as I always like to ask, what you got for us today?
Okay, today on Socially Conscious, we have the news that we are following here, mainly locally. And I came across some pretty interesting topics here, pretty interesting stories. So for those who are currently receiving unemployment benefits, they have some good news for you guys. Some really, really good news. As of Monday, the maximum unemployment benefit here in New York increased by over $300, and that is starting the week of October 6th, which is this week, or the week of October 13th, which is next week. Okay, the maximum unemployment benefit from New York State used to be $504 a week. Now it's at $869 a week, pretty much almost $900. You'll be able to receive the max from your unemployment benefits. And this has finally changed since the year 2019. Then the more than $300 increase matches other states when it comes to their unemployment benefits. So in New York State, we received the least amount. At least 27% will get the $869 per week, while 28% will see their overall benefit increase. Now, your unemployment benefits will be recalculated based on your earnings that you previously reported when you first signed up for the benefits. And the amount of the increase, if any, is based on your gross earnings reported during the base period of your claim. So for those who don't know, this is Pastor Steph's area of expertise with her heavy successful background in HR. I had to read this a couple of times before I kind of got some type of understanding of it. Now, the increase in the maximum unemployment benefit is due to New York State paying off its loan for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. If they did not pay this loan off, it could have taken up until the year 2031 for the maximum unemployment benefits to increase, which we are currently in 2025. So just think about having to wait until 2031 in order to receive some type of increase, all because the state didn't do their part. So thank God for them being on point. Next, we have news in our schools. In New York City, there was a 17-year-old who got caught with a 9mm handgun this past Monday morning. He had it tucked in his waistband, and this took place in East Brooklyn High School out on Kings Highway. Now, we've been hearing a whole lot, and again, Vivian has been reporting some situations going on with guns in these schools, and as she has highlighted, This is still just the beginning of the school year. Okay, he was packing a 9mm when another student spotted the gun and made sure that they alerted the teachers, and those teachers made sure they alerted 911. Thank God no one hesitated to take action. The gun was recovered and the 17-year-old was taken into custody there on the scene, and charges are currently pending. Now, here's what was not a little disturbing, but disturbing to me. This school, what's the name of the school? East Brooklyn High School. They don't have metal detectors. Since when do the schools in New York City, high schools, now I know that they've integrated a lot of these high schools. Now you have junior high school students in the same building as high school students, but y'all don't have metal detectors. And after hearing, this is not the first case we're able to bring up come this 2025 school year that has to do with children bringing weapons into the school. Now, according to the police, this incident comes weeks after in Queens at Benjamin Cardoza High School, a 16-year-old student was busted with a loaded semi-automatic handgun. He was arrested after threatening to shoot up the school. And thank God, and this is something that I brought up in past posts when Vivian or Pastor Steph has brought up past things, because someone flagged the post on social media, a social media moderator flagged the post, and I'm assuming that they notified the authorities, and that's how he got caught. He or she, they didn't state whether the 16-year-old in Queens was a male or female, but they were threatening to shoot up the school and making other terrorist threats. So when they got to school with a gun, they were able to be apprehended. Now, Cardoza didn't have metal detectors either. Okay, and I'm really trying to understand how, with all of these school shootings, with all of these students going to school with these guns, why don't they have metal detectors? They do now, after this incident took place. The metal detectors were implemented by NYPD school safety, but it's not a permanent feature for the school. And it's reported that only a small number of New York City schools have permanent scanning, with budget constraints and officer shortages affecting their border use. And this is coming from the union. So we hear a whole lot about New York State, New York City using funds to fund this and do that. A whole lot that here on this platform alone we have questioned, but yet there's no money to ensure that these schools have permanent metal detectors and active officers on site. And now for our wow story of the week, which was submitted by a loyal viewer and listener. We have a child wanderer, 5-year-old boy. The mother of this 5-year-old was arrested after this 5-year-old was found outside of a laundromat at about 5:30 in the morning this past Tuesday morning, yesterday, out in Far Rockaway, Queens. An employee of the laundromat notified police and reported that the child was wandering outside barefoot and alone. And we have a quote from the employee. She says, quote, "He don't say nothing, but he listened to me. I said, 'Come on, Papa,' and he came inside with me." And they had surveillance outside of the laundromat, and they caught him on camera just running around the parking lot. Parking lot was completely deserted, of course, because it's early in the morning. How many people are going to do laundry at 5:30 a.m.? Okay, so reportedly he is autistic and nonverbal, and he was taken to the hospital for evaluation. And once the evaluation was over, he ended up in ACS custody, unfortunately. Okay, so now here's the kicker. Here's what makes this the wow story of the week. Okay, the police were eventually able to receive a tip on who the little boy was, his identity, and was able to trace back to where he lived, which was only around the block from the laundromat. Wait, hold up. When the police went to the home, they found that there were 7 other children there by themselves. The mother, where was she? She was out committing a robbery in Brooklyn. So you left your 8 children at home by themselves. One of your children found his way outside, running around playing tag by himself in the laundromat parking lot because you were out robbing a person, a store. They didn't say what, they just said she was committing a robbery out in Brooklyn while you left your children alone at home in Queens. And when she was arrested, she denied having any children. So I don't know if her denying was so that they wouldn't go looking for the kids and maybe she could phone someone and tell them to go. I don't know what that plan was. I'm not sure. And we do have a quote from another parent. They did not state who this parent was, but the quote is, quote, "Times get hard and sometimes you get desperate, but there are resources out there and nothing is worth losing your children. Like, your children are important. Nothing is worth what you just did, what you risked. And thank God there are literal angels walking the streets and making sure he's safe, but you have to think." Did she think, was this a plan? That's something that we will ask Pastor Steph and you viewers. This has been Shantice with Socially Conscious, bringing you the news that we are following. And remember, if you come across any stories that you would like Vivian to highlight and to mention, make sure you log into Facebook and message her on Facebook. Her name is Vivian DM. Thank you to our loyal viewers and listeners, and thank you, Pastor Steph.
Thank you, Shantice. Thank you. Never cease to amaze us. Never cease to amaze us. The wow stories are always wow. All right. Let's get to chatting. Let's talk to our girl, Lady Tamika. Good morning.
Good morning and happy wow Wednesday. How are you today?
Wow. I'm okay. Thank you. I'm wowing this morning. Woo! All righty, ladies. Let's get to talking. Unemployment is the first topic this morning. Now, ever since 2019, we've been at one steady rate, and they've got a jump of over $300. We are now at 800 and what is that, $69 a week. If you receive unemployment and you've received that type of income. So for those who don't quite understand, you don't automatically get $869. It's based on your earnings, and that's the earnings that has been reported by you and by your company. All righty. So, Tamika, New York City New York State was one of the last states to kind of jump on board and get this increase. What's your thought? Should we have been, behind the rest of the nation? Or is this okay to, kind of coast here for a while?
No, we are way past due. It took 5 years, 4 years for us to even get that. New Yorkers, we got tax on everything, and now with everything going up, something as simple as groceries is unbelievable, and the fact that those that are due and those that, need it, based on what they filed. I think it's a beautiful thing. I remember in the past, having to collect unemployment, and you say, you get that and you say, oh, this is all I'm getting. And you try your best to suffice and do what needs to be done. Now, for those that are eligible, they won't have to do it as much.
Yes, thank goodness. Thank goodness that you didn't have to do it this go round. But Shantice, what's your thought on the unemployment increase? Should New York have taken so long?
Absolutely not. It seems like New York is the state that helps a lot to, like, they outsource a whole lot, but when it comes to in-house, then New York is the last to receive. So to hear that New York is just catching up is like, huh? How? Like, doesn't this state make the most, or if not number one in the top 5? How is it that New York is just now catching up to what is now the max here? In other states, soon they'll probably be looking to increase again because they've already hit this mark.
Yeah, this is interesting to hear that New York is the last one dragging their feet. And we know as New Yorkers where the economy is sitting. We just came through where eggs were like $10 and $12 a dozen. So how is it that they're taking so long to increase the bare unemployment? Because where else do you get money from? You can't go get public assistance. Because remember, so for those who don't know, unemployment can only actually be applied for if you've worked at least 6 consecutive months at in being employed right before you kind of worked. So even if there's a small gap between your employment, you can still go back actually and possibly get that unemployment. But you've got to put in at least 6 months. Now, again, you pay into this. That's on your pay stub. Look at your pay stub and you'll see, unemployment. Okay, so you actually pay a very small piece, but you do pay. Your company has to also pay into this kitty. So you're paying, they're paying, and from what Shantice just got finished saying, there's actually a fund from the state that has to be maintained. So you got all of these, wheels in motion. So, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this unemployment. Also, you couldn't quit. You can't quit for the most part. You can't quit your job and then go file for unemployment. They have had to let you go, and there's certain stipulations on your termination where you can actually be declined, maybe theft, any type of violence on the job. Certain things will disqualify you, although you've paid, although the company's paid, that can disqualify you from actually getting unemployment. There are also some contingencies on when you can get, and you didn't even know that you could. So it's actually not as cut and dry as people, think it is. People say, "Well, I lost my job, so I'm going to get unemployment." If you're laid off, you can get unemployment. They cannot deny you if you have been laid off. That's a different level of termination. So, there's a lot of factors that go into this thing here. So to think that it's not as cut and dry, here's where I started. If you are applying for unemployment, you have got to be ready, willing, and able to work, people. You cannot have your leg broke and apply for unemployment. Okay, you cannot do things like that, because what you're supposed to be doing while you're applying for unemployment is actually seeking employment. You ain't supposed to be sitting at home. Yo, let's get some lessons this morning, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot be at home, or you shouldn't be at home chilling, looking for unemployment because you just got finished working for the last 6 months and you figure you need a break. I'm dead serious. Because when you're supposed to be filling out paperwork that says, I'm ready, willing, and able. They ask you how many days during the week before, did you actually go out and look for a job? So this money that they're giving you is not only to, let's say, sustain you, but it's supposed to, help you like with car fare to go look for work. So, you're supposed to be up and running. And if you found a job today, you're supposed to be able to jump up and go out there today. So that's why I say if your leg is broke and you are filling out unemployment papers each week, when you check in pretty much on a Sunday, you're telling them that, you know what, if I were to be called on a job right now, I could actually go. So, here we are in New York State, pretty much destitute. God forbid you got kids. If you're looking for work, you more than likely got to pay somebody to watch your kids to go out there and look for work. So if you're not really paying me a whole lot of money, and for people who are on the lower end of the payroll, you're only getting a percentage of your weekly salary. This does not match your weekly salary. So if you're making $800 a week, you're not getting $800 a week from unemployment. So this is really, again, I'm telling you all of this to kind of say, this is another reason why New York State has got to keep themselves up and running properly so that, you can go and look for work. You can't have all these stipulations on employees, but yet you're not doing your part. So if there have been people who have actually applied for unemployment who couldn't get it because the company didn't pay. So when y'all go look for work and y'all are finding these jobs that, they paying you under the table, know that God forbid you don't have that job in a week, 9 months, you can't go get an unemployment, because if they're paying you under the table, they're not paying into the unemployment kitty. So you're not going to be able to get that money that you're going to desperately need. Now, let's put this on the table. We got to check it from Miss Erlima. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Miss Erlima. So, Tamika, they've given stipulation on being ready, willing, and able to work. And the fact that you should be out looking for work while you're unemployed. Because generally, you're only guaranteed to get unemployment for 180 days, which is 6 months. Do you think there should be a limit on the amount of time you get unemployment? Do you think there should be a stipulation of ready, willing, and able? What's your thought on those things?
Well, to be honest, we're in a really scary place. We just heard about, for instance, the 900 some odd employees from Starbucks that are losing their jobs because of the closing of Starbucks. The other thing is that a lot of businesses are doing things differently. You used to be able to walk up to a store or a restaurant or wherever and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," and hand them your resume. Even with the job fairs, you stand online for all these long hours with oodles of resumes. You go into these little partitions, speaking to people. And back in the day, they used to hire you on the spot. Now they got like clumps of resumes that they just kind of chop, and it's like, okay, why did I waste my time? Because that's what it feels like. I think at this point, 6 months should be extended. At one point it used to be a year, because things are becoming a lot more difficult, and that's just because of what's going on, the climate of what we're dealing with at this time. Maybe after a year, I think after a year you should surely have something by then. Even if it's just a temporary position, temp to perm, those are benefits as well. I think that 6 months is short, and it should stay at the year just because of where we are.
Okay. Shantice, what do you think of the stipulation that you need to be ready, willing, and able to work, as well as you can only get it for 6 months?
I like the 6 months because it helps to keep that fire up under you, because a year can fly by as well. If it's 6 months, and then after the 6 months, if you do not have employment, but you're able to show that you applied here, especially now that all of these applications are virtual, it'll be extremely easy for the people at the unemployment to retrieve applications that you've submitted throughout the course of those 6 months. You show, I've been actively looking, I've attended said interviews, but I haven't gotten any callbacks, so on and so forth. I've updated resumes, I've done this, I've done that. And if for whatever reason you still don't have unemployment, then they should extend it another 6 months. But it should definitely be that 6 month mark, because if we know people like we know people, whether you're a go-getter or not, a lot of times, you'll get real lackadaisical. And now it's like, okay, I got a year, but then I'm not looking for work until month 10. And then now unemployment gets cut off in another 2 months. And now I'm and now I'm trying to reapply. And it's like, no, you can't the whole year not do anything. And then now 2 months prior to the cutoff, now you want to, no. So it should definitely be that the willing and able to work. Absolutely, you do have to commit to that. And again, just be active with it. So when they ask, we'll have you going out, let us know where you've applied. They're able to, get the proof of that.
Well, some people might make the argument, and I'm not playing devil's advocate because I ain't playing devil's nobody, but people might make the argument, but listen, I've worked 8-9 months. I should be entitled to parlay a while until, I'm ready to actually get up and go get a job. Why are you dictating? If I've worked for, 8-9 months, a year, I should be able to, go another 2-3 months without having to, I shouldn't be forced to go look for work. It should be my right to not have to look for work, and I should be able to collect unemployment benefits. What's your thought on that mentality or that thought process, Lady Tamika?
So that seems you just sitting there chilling. You've been working all this time, and you figure like, well, I don't want to work and I don't have to work. Now that mentality is completely screwed. The whole purpose of unemployment benefits is to be able to provide or assist you while you're seeking work. You're not just, and if you've ever had to file, and that's why when you started saying it, I said it with you. If you're ready, willing, and able to work, that is something that is stated every, when you get ready to file, which is on a weekly basis, that's something that's mentioned, because they don't want you with the mentality that, I'm just going to get back and I'm going to relax and chill out until, some people like Shanti said, will wait till the very last day. One of the other things that they ask you is that you have to have documentation. Okay, I've applied for the year. They want a year's worth of documentation if you've been unemployed for a year, if you've been on whatever the length of time, because they don't want you to get comfortable with receiving, because somebody out there has that mentality. Oh well, I don't have to. And yes, you do, because that's money that's being given out that doesn't have to give out. If you can just get access to a work, we're not just gonna let you relax while there's something that's open and available. You just turn it down, jobs, when somebody is literally looking and searching and pulling up things trying to find a job. That's not fair.
All right, all right. Lady Tamika says it's not fair. Get on out there and get a job. Look for one. Shantice, what say you in regards to? Listen, I worked a year. I should be able to collect unemployment and parlay. Come on.
What's 12 months of work? So you start a job in January. You don't really get used to it up until about March, April. Okay. Then you really get in the groove of things, and now you're in a good flow. If you're a good worker, if you have good work ethic, 12 months ain't no time to be patting yourself on the shoulder talking about you worked. Okay, then it just sounds like you want to sit up on welfare. Oh, well, I've done this, so now I can say, because from my understanding, unemployment isn't money you're receiving from something you've paid into. Like, so I've paid into this, so it's like I'm getting my money back. This is the government giving you money. Is that correct?
No. So
that's what you pay into?
You pay your pennies.
Right.
So on your pay stub, New York City employees, New York State employees, you see a line item called SUI. That's what we call SUI, State Unemployment Insurance. So you pay a couple of pennies, because last I checked, it was like $1.60. So you're paying a couple of pennies into this kitty, so that if and when you should become unemployed, you can get the benefit. Again, your company also has to pay their portion into the kitty as well, because we've had people who've actually had that on their pay stub, and when they actually went to apply, they were told they couldn't get it because their company had not paid their portion. So it's twofold. It's your contribution and their contributions.
Okay.
And Miss Erlima says, bills don't parlay.
Right. That part also. But
like
even with me hearing that explanation, it's not giving me that I can parlay because I done worked for 12 months, because you still haven't contributed enough, not even just enough financially, but enough time to have that type of mentality to say that. So no, I don't agree with that.
Okay. I'm with you ladies and Miss Erlima. Bills don't parlay. Listen, it's part of life. It's wonderful to be able to say, hey, I worked a year and I should, deserve a break, to take a break. But listen, be an adult. Go get a job. Because just like Mr. Lim said, bills don't parlay. What are you doing while you chilling? Who's paying the bills? Where's your food coming from? Again, where's the money to even look for a job? Now, here's the thing. We don't go out on foot and look for a job the way we used to, but listen, you got to have internet access, don't you?
Yeah.
However you are actually looking for a job, that bill has to be paid. So go ahead and do your due diligence. Look for your employment and get on out there and work. And you get a nice job, you'll get some vacation benefits, time off. So, just go ahead without thinking and just do what you need to do, opposed to trying to find an excuse, for taking this quote unquote break. Again, you're only putting in a couple of pennies, in comparison to actually what you're going to get. So if they're up to like $169, you've made, a nice amount of money. You haven't really paid that much money into the kitty.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still kind of coming up. Just go ahead and do your due diligence and stop thinking about the break. All right. All right. Guns, 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 and more guns. So in one Brooklyn school, a 17-year-old was spotted with a gun. Look at this gun in this picture. Just even think about something like that. That's what they were caught with. And another student, told that the other student had a gun. Now this comes moments after someone in Queens was caught. A 16-year-old was caught with a gun. Both high schools did not have metal detectors. And now they have some makeshift, from what Shantice is saying, they have some makeshift metal detectors. And, this is kind of out of the norm that these schools don't have metal detectors, especially with younger children now in these high schools. They've now integrated the high schools to include junior high school students. So they kind of merged. Brother Al works in one of those schools where they have 6 through 12, opposed to 9 through 12, which is what they used to have in high schools only. Shantice, what's the thought of the fact that all these schools normally have metal detectors in them, and now they don't, and this is what potentially goes through in the book bag?
I'm trying to understand. When I was in high school, we had metal detectors. They wouldn't even allow the girls to walk through the metal detectors with their hair wrapped. Back then, wraps were still in style. You go to the Dominicans and they give you the washing set. You didn't want to comb your wrap out until you got into school. They didn't care about your fashion style. They didn't care about you better unwrap it before you walk up to this metal detector because we're making you take your scarf off. Now, what was the likelihood in us sneaking a gun, a knife or a blade in our scarf? But we couldn't even walk through with that. And it was a whole lot less of students bringing guns and stuff into the school back then. Not saying it wasn't happening, but it was not like now. Now it's before the school year can really get started. Is the first semester over? Okay, so we're not even through the first semester of the school year, and already this is like maybe the fourth or fifth account we have of students regarding whatever state, of students taking not just a weapon but a gun to school. Why don't you have metal detectors? And then they're talking about because of the lack of funds. Not when it was just reported a few short months ago that $30 billion was about to be contributed to the greenery. So y'all care about having the grass, but y'all won't care about making sure that there's armed officers and metal detectors in these schools, in these high schools where wasn't there just a story we just did a couple of weeks ago about a younger kid and the kid apprehended the gun, but he got in trouble because he didn't want to say who was stupid. So this is not only even happening in high schools. This is happening in the elementary schools, in the junior high schools where there's only junior high school students. So I'm really curious as to how they don't feel a need for this, until something happens, like there haven't been enough things happening. How many more things do you need to happen before this is a necessity? Like you need a front door to the school, you need metal detectors. You wouldn't have a school without the front doors, would you? Okay, so you should not have a school without metal detectors. Because if that student didn't snitch and say he saw the gun, if the social media moderator didn't flag the post about the student, the 16-year-old in the Queen school, stating that he was going to shoot the school up, they would have been able to be successful at pursuing this, whatever their plans were. Come on. No. Okay. How would that be? Something needs to happen to them.
Okay. Lady Tamika, no no metal detectors in at least these two schools. Is that the norm? Should that be the norm?
Of course not. We're in a day and age where it's sad to say, but wherever there's a child, you need a metal detector. You in daycare, you babysitting, you
Ah,
know, babysitting Morris Daycare Center. You got medical. Not only that, you need fentanyl detectors. Like, how many more children have got to die? How many more lives have to be affected before you get it? That is something mandatory. And I get it that there are, budget situations, but while you paying for bicycles for the school, things that they don't necessarily need. There are grants and all types of things that are provided. And I understand that resources are geared towards certain things, but that is mandatory. And the fact that we've got two schools that and many more, I'm sure, that don't have metal detectors is ridiculous. And this is something that needs to be permanent. Not okay, we're going to deal with it 6 months, and we're going to allow another school to have it for 3 months, and this school to have it. That has to, for the safety of our children. It's like I remember, it's gotten to the point now where the last thing that you ever had to worry about was a child. And now at this point, that's the very first thing that you have to worry about because if you don't believe it now, the children are under attack. And we have to guard our children with our very lives. And if that means I don't know why I keep saying medical, but metal detectors, then let's do it and let's get it done.
Okay. When metal detectors were first put into schools, there was a lot of resistance. They were, oh, that's what they do in jails and blah, 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 blah. But, when they started catching all of the different weapons that were being brought into the school, then it justified the movement. I cannot imagine in these days and times that there is any school, especially a high school, that don't have, metal detectors. Now here's the thing. Funds. What do you mean funds? You don't have the funds. That should go with chairs and lunch. You know, that should be automatically included in your budget. You need operating mags, metal detectors. And why you're not fighting for this a um as a principal is beyond me. I wouldn't want to be up in no school with these kids. I would not want to be up in no school with these kids and somebody had a gun. Because if the gun didn't get to me and it got to another student, as the leader of this school, I feel responsible. How am I going to sleep at night knowing that we went to sleep on something like this? So, I don't even understand how I'm the principal of this particular school. I know, I'm not taking a stand on, well, our children don't carry guns. Well, here we go. If that was your mentality, you just failed because now you don't know your students as well as you think you do. First of all, you cannot monitor these children like this. You don't know who's being bullied. You don't know who's, they were saying, we did a story quite a few years ago where the child was traveling with the gun, not for the children in the school, but because of her traveling. She was saying she needed to keep herself protected. So she's not going to dump the gun when she gets to school or the knife when she gets to school. It must go into the school with her because when she comes back out, she's going to need it. So it's not even necessarily to protect herself from students. For whatever the reason is, these children feel like they need this gun. And now here you are, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 bullets on the table. 13 bullets on the table here. That there is, it just makes my whole heart sink to know that
Mhm.
that could have been something that could have been used to actually murder someone intentionally or by mistake. So you are extremely negligent if you are operating a school these days and times where there's no magnometer and you can't protect your children. We
Mhm.
got to check it from our Pastor KL. Hello. Good morning, Pastor KL. Pastor KL says it's absolutely sad that we have to lobby for detectives in our school. Wasn't a thought in my day. Absolutely. When we were going to school, we just went into school. They didn't even check your bag. You
Must be
just went to
nice.
school. But unfortunately, we're living in a day where, we don't have that luxury of just sending our kids to school, of just letting our children in the school. And think about a sixth grader in this school for the first time.
Mhm.
Hit with a stray bullet, you know,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can say. Nothing you can
Mhm.
say to your family where
Mhm.
you messed around. So shame on you if you actually got up every day and went to a school and you ran a school that did not have a metal
Metal
detector.
detectors.
And this shows up. One of your security. You Shantice mentioned something about an armed uh security. Let's put it like that. Do
Or
you
armed
think
officers.
armed officers, thank you. Do you think, Lady Tamika, that um we should have armed guards in the school?
There was a time when I would say absolutely not. But these children, this is a different breed of children. They will test you, they'll push you, and you never know what, you know, on a daily basis. This is one of the reasons why we pray for our schools. You don't know what's going in and out. You don't know who has alliances with who. We're in a day and age where at babies, they're coming into gangs, and
Right.
so they have access to guns. We got a 6-year-old that came into the school with a gun and shot a teacher. 6. And
Yeah.
so at this point, you need to be on guard. We pray for them physically, but there is a need for armed guards because of the climate of our schools.
Okay. So Tamika says, absolutely. What say you, Shanti? Should we have armed guards in the school?
Absolutely. Not only for the children, but I've been saying that ever since these random school attacks were taking place. You got people running up in these schools. Why are there not armed guards? And again, like I said, when I go to get my glasses, there is an armed guard in there. And I had to ask him, sir, why are they coming in here really stealing these Prada frames like that you got to stand in here with this thick SWAT bulletproof vest? Because I'm feeling very uneasy getting this eye exam. I'm feeling some hostility. I had to ask him just like that. I was like, this is concerning. Because if I'm in the next room getting an eye exam and I hear pop, 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 then I don't need to be coming here. I need to go somewhere where all they have are the Medicaid frames. Because that's all I get. I'm not. I just need to find the place, the ophthalmologist that only carries the Medicaid frames, the insurance frames. Because if they setting it off for these Pradas and Gucci's, y'all can have that. Okay. I don't know what. So if they take the time to do that in the eye place, why is there no concern or thought to really enforce having these armed guards? You having one school safety person sitting at the front desk in the lobby with a baton and a whistle is not going to do anything for someone who wants to run up in there and shoot the school up. Now, on top of that, you have the staff and or the students getting up in the morning with the intention of shooting and killing somebody or people. Why are they not armed guards? Like it's been said, unfortunately, now you got to frisk the kindergarten students. With all due respect, empty your lunchbox. Okay, open it up, open the tuna fish sandwich. Let me see. You have to, and yes, as Pastor Steph, you say, there was a lot of resistance when they first tried to implement the metal detectors. But would you rather them do this and they get on your nerves on that level, or like you say, you walk in and now you getting a call that you got to come pick your kid up, or your kid was one of the students shot because there was nothing put in place to prevent this. No one wants to be proactive. No one wants to. Everyone would rather be reactive. You'd rather show up to put the yellow tape up than to do something to prevent the yellow tape having to be put up. It's sad.
Here's my concern. I can find 50 reasons to put an armed guard in the school. My only concern is, who are we putting the gun in the hands of? Is this somebody who we didn't check thoroughly? He got a mental illness. he's already on edge. And now we've got more school shootings than we need because the armed guards are just as crazy as the kids. So that's my only concern. It's the same thing with the police. Every police officer, they don't need a gun, but that's just part of the job. So, I do understand, but my thing is, I don't know how we gonna manage with this, because again, you get a child, it's like, put it down, put it down, put it down, and then before you know it, the child is dead. And then you find out that the child had a mental illness, and then you do a little research and you find out that the guard had a mental illness, and now we got it can just go so wrong. And that's my concern of schools. And now where are we sending our children? So like I said, I'm not saying we shouldn't have them, but it makes me very nervous to send my child to school. And I do understand, that may have made a difference when these shooters went up in the school. That may have made a big difference, where they could have, actually shot him or disarmed him before, and at one point it was a her, the shooter. So I get it. I definitely get it. We got a comment from Majesty. I went to Lehman High School. We had no metal detectors, and we can go out for lunch. When I was there, no threats, just regular school fights for years. I remember Lehman High School in the Bronx. I used to bowl against them. And Lehman had like, oh my goodness. Was it Lehman? It was Lehman when we bowled against the girls bowling team. They were like giants. Yeah, I mean, when they knocked the pins down, the pins went like in other people's lanes. Yeah, yeah. I think it was Lehman. That it was like, oh, who are these people? So that's probably why, Majesty, y'all didn't need no metal detectors, because the students handled themselves. He says, but the times are different. They're not fighting, which I don't condone, but I'd rather that instead of the guns. I'm with you, Majesty. I kind of like err on the side of, just get the metal detectors and hope we can keep the guns out of the school. Pastor KL says, question, then would the armed guard shoot the 6-year-old? Which is my question. Now what do we do? What are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with, the student getting shot because, the armed guard was a little trigger happy, or went, oops, so it's scary. It's very scary, very scary. Our wow story for today. A 5-year-old little boy was caught or picked up by a laundromat employee in the parking lot after he was running around in circles, and she was able to, get him without any, you know, anything going wrong. She, calls the authorities and to find out he's autistic. They go to the home to find several children, 7 other children in the home without an adult, and only to find out that mom is out committing robbery during the time while the children are home alone. And when confronted, she says she doesn't have any children. Now, I wonder how they even located her to find out that this was her children. But Tamika, Lady Tamika, you got first dibs on this story. Child, as Mariah would say.
That's what I was thinking. Like, this is why children have to have an advocate, because like these parents, where they get their parents? They don't make parents like they used to.
They sure don't.
You got 7 kids in addition to this one little child, running around in circles, whatever, glad that the attendant was looking and paying attention. Because a lot of times, you're doing your own job. You ain't got time to pay attention to somebody else's child. So I'm glad that they were able to do that, and then some way, somehow, pin it to the mother. 9 times out of 10, somebody saw that child in the neighborhood, identified, okay, that's such and such a child.
That's Tamika's kid.
Why they gotta be my kid? But somebody said, oh, that's such and such. That's Twakisha's children.
Is Waukesha and you robbing somebody?
They figure, they're gonna take the child back to the mama. You get there, and the kids are in there by themselves. Where in the world? And she's not even in the same borough. Like, she's not down the street robbing someplace. She decides she's gonna go all the way to Brooklyn. And again, why? You need and I'm listening to the comment. You need an extra, you need some extra cash. Your unemployment ain't coming through like you want to, so you decide you're gonna bust up in a place and rob something. And then after getting caught, what did you think the children gonna take care of themselves? They're gonna go to the neighbor, they got an auntie, somewhere. I don't understand the mentality of people. I understand you trying to get your hustle on, but sister, that's not the move. Especially when you got 8 kids. That's not. Find something. Get a clue. That is not the way to do it.
She says, sister. Now this is a time when you say sis.
I hate that term.
Oh. Shantice.
Well, obviously she taught them how to do laundry because he was there waiting for them to open the gates up at 5. One article said 5:10, another one said 5:30. So 5:15, he was there ready to do the laundry, running around the parking lot. An autistic 5-year-old who's nonverbal, barefoot, running around this parking lot. Somebody could have ran him over.
Right.
Somebody could have abducted him.
Right.
But what do you care? Because you're abducting someone's property in another borough. And then you're leaving the other kids who obviously ain't paying him no mind or each other no mind in the home. This is just like, what? Again, you've been hearing the stories. How do we know? Because we've been hearing the stories about these parents getting caught with leaving their children, their underage children, in the home by themselves. Something most likely goes wrong that then alerts authorities and you are then caught. Why are we? And then you can't even say, I went to work. Well, that is work for you. But you can't say you ain't collecting no unemployment benefits from that job. You can't say you were doing anything noble while you were away. Well, listen, I have to go to work because you see, I got 8 children. There's no father. There, no, you and the boyfriend them probably concocted this plan. And here's what probably happened. Y'all was supposed to be back before 5, but something happened, and you got somebody else to do it with y'all who made y'all late, or something went wrong. Something went wrong, and now you all busted on both ends. So now you're in trouble for robbery and you're in trouble for neglect.
Can you imagine?
So if this child already, because they said once they completed his evaluation at the hospital, they immediately turned him over to ACS. So that's going to happen with your other underage children as well. They're not going to show partiality. Everybody making a trip over to ACS, and you're making a trip to jail. It's just the parents said in the quote. I understand the desperation, but you can't be that desperate to where you stupid. Like, what's happening?
You already
had to be an overnight job. Because who's going somewhere at 5 o'clock in the morning to break?
I was gonna say it probably ran late. They were supposed to probably be back by about 4, and something happened, and it ran late. Because robberies rarely go as planned, especially the more people you got involved. And if you got a bishop on your team, it ain't go right. Okay, so
they stopped the White Castle on the way home so they could bring the kids some food. That's what happened.
They ain't thinking about
White Castle for breakfast? Oh, you real neglected.
They got breakfast at White Castle.
Who's eating breakfast at White Castle?
That's the only place that's open.
How you know, Pastor Steph?
What? That's the only place that's open?
How you know that's the only place with breakfast that's open at 4:45 to 5 a.m.?
It says 24 hours.
Mm.
White Castle has always been open 24 hours a day.
She's right.
So I'm sorry.
I knew, but I didn't know they had breakfast.
Yes, they have breakfast. Everywhere has breakfast now. If they're smart, they want to make the money at breakfast. So they stop. First of all, somebody said that she's stupid. You stupid if you got 8 kids today in 2025. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got 8 kids in 2025? You already stupid. Who does that now? Now, clearly, you made a wrong move because you got 8 kids and the only job you could get is robbery. Stupid. Who has kids? These 8 kids these days? Who? I want to know, does she know 3 of their names?
Yeah, because you can't get your 3 together half the time.
And I've been calling you for 40, 35, and 27 years. I'm still getting it mixed up. No, for real. Already you're stupid. You got 8 kids in 2025, and there's no way to take care of these kids. There's no way to take care. You can't take care of these kids. Who can take care of 8 kids these days? Vivian has done how much it takes for child care for 1 kid. Just one kid. You got 8. You went and got some mini burgers on the way home, and you did not anticipate somebody was going to get out that house. That's what happened. You trying to collect food, so when you go home, it'll spread. And somebody was in the drive-through, and now your children are sitting with ACS. Now, who says I don't have any children? If they approached you and asked you about your kids, you clearly had children. They're not picking you out of a lineup to be mother of the year. Oh, let's see in this lineup who got kids. You. If they came to you and they talked to you about your children, then clearly they knew what they were talking about. So you don't have kids. No, you acted as though you did not have any children, but you clearly had children. So already you're talking about Somebody, I bet you any amount of money that they're going to claim she had some level of mental illness. I promise you, this coming out. Okay, somebody just wrote she will have another side of the story, possibly saying she was doing it to feed and take care of the children. I told you she was at White Castle getting food for the kids.
But you got mental health issues if you getting breakfast from White Castle.
You got mental health issue if you got 8 kids today in 2025. I'm
Right.
sticking to that. I'm
Right.
sticking to that.
I
I don't care
agree.
how educated you are. I don't care how financially well off you are. If you got 8 kids in 2025, you are mentally ill. Who does that now? It's too expensive. It's too much maintenance. It's too much. It's too much to have children at this level these days and times. And clearly, you're unable to take care of your children, which is why you're robbing people because you can't afford to get no babysitter. So now we go from leaving the kids with the father or the boyfriend to now just leaving the kids with the kids to go rob somewhere.
The boyfriend went with her. That's why he wasn't being
How do you focus on the robbery when you got 8 kids in your house? How?
Because the 7-year-old was the oldest, and he or she was supposed to watch the other ones. The 7-year-old was responsible enough to make sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to do.
I got 15 years old adults can't handle 8 kids. That's running a daycare. Who's running the daycare? This is what I'm saying. Something's wrong. Y'all think I'm joking and I'm not being funny. Something's wrong with you when you keep laying up having kids up to the number 8 in 2025. People can't pay rent. People can't pay for childcare. People can't find a job. Yo, what are you doing? They needed to lock her up when they found out that she was on child number 5. That's it. There should be some. No, come on. You can't be serious. And clearly you didn't have a plan. Like Tamika said, you way off in another borough robbing. You didn't even plan the heist in the neighborhood. Cause ain't nowhere to rob in your neighborhood, Tamika.
Far Rockaway, ain't nobody really got no money out there.
Come on. You know, KL said, "And it's a number of new beginnings."
He is annoying.
What does Kenny say? Wait, Kenny said the kids are safer with the kids instead of their parents. Yeah, pretty much, Kenny. This is what I'm saying. You got 8 kids these days. Something wrong with you upstairs. Something's wrong upstairs. And it's sad. It is really sad that these kids are born into this world of your chaos and confusion and your lack of being able to take care of them. No, she needs to be arrested just for having 8 birth certificates in her drawer. She needs to be locked up. Come on, she needs to be locked up, and that's the sad part about it. I ain't moving from off that one. So y'all get mad at me if you want to. So we're talking about things that people do socially conscious wise, right? So are you conscious enough to have 8 kids? Well, here's a new story. Here's a professor wait, let me see how they term it. College director. He is the director of finance at the college. He's the director of financial aid at the University of Arkansas Pulaski Tech. So he is engaged to a woman who has an 18-year-old daughter. And mom is not happy with who she's dating. So she sends out the lynch mob for the young man. So this college director, who is 54 years old, he goes and gets another young man, 23, and another one who's 20. And when the young man pulls up in the car, he's driving the girlfriend's car. He pulls up in the car wherever he was supposed to arrive. They meet him. They take him out the car. The college director puts his hands around the boy's throat. They put him in another car. They drive him to another location. And they tie him up to a chair. And they commence to playing Russian roulette with him. So the kid says he remembers them spinning the chamber. And they want him to stop dating the daughter. So they resort to kidnapping and playing Russian roulette to keep him from dating the daughter. So this is what we're doing. We're unhappy with who's dating my daughter. So we send out the lynch mob to play Russian roulette with an 18-year-old. Lady Tamika.
All right, so I need a little clarity. So I'm trying to understand. So the mother of the fiance, meaning the female, is hiring two gentlemen. Am I understanding that right?
Mom has an 18-year-old daughter.
Okay.
She's unhappy with who she's dating. So her fiance is commissioned by her to get two others to teach him a lesson and to force him to stop seeing the daughter. So this is what they do. These are the lengths we're going to in order to convince this boy to stop dating my daughter.
What happened to regular old conversations? You know, conversations with the daughter, conversations with the gentleman. You know, back in the day, they took us, you know, in the living room or wherever, you know, and if I had to have, you know, if mom had a conversation with me, we did it. You know, there were times when she had a conversation with me and, you know, whoever I thought I was dating at the time, you know, and she was very clear and very transparent. I don't like you, and here's why. You know, and she'd take time with me. I don't like this guy that you're dating, and here's why. You know, where do we get off, you know, hiring somebody pretty much to scare somebody so that they can stop dating? What nobody wants to talk anymore? You know, again, this is another episode where I said they're not making parents the way that they used to. And we need to make, I mean, there's never been a training per se for parent, but maybe we need one.
So now, this is how we convince our daughter's boyfriends to stay away from jail. Shantice.
Was he abusive?
No.
Okay.
They didn't say anything about that he was mistreating her, that he was abusive. None of that.
Good question.
Mom wanted him to stop dating her daughter.
Mom wanted him.
Wanted the 18-year-old to stop dating.
No. Mom wanted the 18-year-old.
Oh, is that what happened?
And he turned her down. Because this is dumb.
Also, they threatened to kill his family if he didn't leave Little Rock, Arkansas.
Well, unless you're from there, you wouldn't have to pay nobody to leave. But So now you own the state. You own it. So now you get to dictate the population, who's there, who moves in, who moves out. All for what? What would be the point? So if it's not to some extreme, because you're not gonna like everyone your child is interested in, whether they're dating them, they're just friends, they're school project partners, whatever. You're not going to like them. But she's pretty much almost an adult. So what are you gonna do? God spares her life when she's 28 and you don't like one of her friends. You gonna do the same thing? And how dumb are you to allow? See, this is what happens when you get other people to have you do their dumbness. You want to do this to him? You do it. This is out of my jurisdiction. This ain't my daughter. I don't feel no type of way about this boy. You do. So now, not only do you want me to do, but now I have to be the leader in the recruitment stage of going to get two others to help me execute your plan. This is why learning things in school when you're younger, because see, this goes on at school. So at school, people was able to get him to smack the girl's butt, pull the girl's hair, mess with the teacher's stuff. He was one of those kids. The fiance was one of those kids. So now here it is. You're in that field still. You're in the education field, and even though you're not a teacher, you're someone with some type of authority in education. And this is what you're doing? And it's not even what you wanted to do. You're going along with someone else's plan. You should get 15 years just for that. Just because you're executing someone else's plan. And then you did, thank God, but then you didn't kill him. So what did you think was going to be the product of this? Like, he was really just going to shut up, never say nothing, and move from Arkansas, and y'all would be quiet until y'all decided to do this to somebody else? She wanted that boy.
Here's what makes this socially conscious. Here you are, 54 years old, a director of financial affairs in a college where you're sitting across from the 23s and the 20-year-olds, trying to direct them as to handle their financial affairs.
That's probably how to do it in school.
And yet, 18, 23, and 20, this is who you have them seeing, and this is what you have them seeing you do. You would stoop to the lows of the mother. You've given up your good job now for kidnapping, aggravated robbery, terroristic threats. These are the things. These are just the basic three. These are the top three charges that the three of them are facing. So you'll go from, I'm teaching you how to handle your financial affairs in order to go to college, to helping you go to jail for almost killing a boy for who he's dating. What role model are you?
I suppose in playing this Russian roulette.
Yes.
Oops.
Yes. And it ain't no oops.
Right, because it's Russian roulette.
Right.
Exactly.
If the bullet happened to be in that part of the chamber, then you out. That's it.
So now you potentially then killed the kid, and other two are going down for murder with you. You're 54 years old.
And the mother probably don't have a job.
You're 54 years old, and you can be manipulated to do this, to stoop to these, to these things. Kidnapping. First of all, you put your hand around his throat. So you start off by choking the boy. And then you kidnap him. Then you tie him to a chair. And then you play Russian roulette, trying to get him to stop seeing this girl and threaten to kill his family.
Wait, Pastor Steph, you know what that's giving me the visual of? Remember in Sparkle when they wanted to get in on Sparkle's record deal, and they took sticks and car. That's what that's reminding me of. Oh, well, you don't want to give it, so now we're gonna take it. We're gonna scare you.
I could not believe I'm looking at someone who's holding this level of authority, this type of job. This makes this socially conscious that we would take and throw away our lives for just stupid stuff. So you got the mother who threw away her life with the 8 kids and threw away their lives now. So she threw away the 8 kids' lives. And you've got this man who's thrown away his life as well as 2 other lives.
But what if he promised them access to the school if he helped them with this?
What?
Meaning access. So you say he's a financial advisor. So now part of my job is to help those who are seriously financially challenged get into school. But you know what? I can help make that happen if you help me with this.
Possibly. So I'm gonna help you get into school as a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm teaching you to stoop to criminalistic behaviors and decision making in order to go to college. This is our cover.
Look at the other spectrum. Like, what did she say that made him decide, okay, I'll do it? Was it the game? The intimate game, the physical game that made him decide, like, and you're going to jail for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You're not coming out. Oh, it's worth me going to jail. You think she can stay there and wait for you when you get out? If you ever get out at all.
Ainsley said it yesterday so he could get the drawers.
GTD.
I was trying to be. Y'all just don't help me stay on the clean.
GTD.
This was supposedly a fiance. This was supposedly a fiance. It's this really, this socially conscious can be so broad, and it's so sad because when you actually dive in to the mentality, it's in the toilet. It's in the toilet. Serge says, so all the stories today were connected, starting with the kids with the gun, missing 3 bullets. Let the mother borrow the gun to Shakisha to commit the robbery, who gave it to the fiance. It's really, it begs to push why we need God.
Absolutely.
It's really no conscious. We just do what that's what this, Serge, you're talking about a wrap up. We just do what we got to do without thinking about the consequences. That's what it is today. That's what all of these are today. You took the guns to school, the unemployment, you don't care about the people because now you're playing with people. The fund is not funded. You're dragging your feet on the funding, for the unemployment when this thing of unemployment is real. So, well, what are we talking about here today? Well, how are we wrapping this up, Lady Tamika?
Oh my God. Like, children need prayer. Families need prayer. Parents need prayer. Schools need prayer. Everybody needs prayer. And I'm just looking at the breakdown of family, the breakdown of relationships. Without God, there's a clear decline. If I can suggest, one thing and you just take off running to do whatever it is that you have a role, you have one job, and that's to do what God tells you to do. You see how these lives are going helter-skelter. The absence of God allows the presence of the enemy in so many different arenas that it'll make your head spin. When you seeing children coming to school, you don't know what they came to school for with the gun. Was it something that's happening in the school? Was it a teacher? Was it an argument? I mean, disagreements. These children are so rageful. They're so angry. I'm mad at you, and I'm gonna take you out. We talked about the school issue with issues saying he cheated on me with somebody else, so now I'm gonna take him out. Again, the absence of God causes all kinds of rage and helter skelter, and we have to pray for people at large. Even if I don't know you, it's cause for me to pray for our schools, our security guards, our children, our parents, especially this child was autistic, can't even verbalize what he's going out at 5 o'clock in the morning barefoot. And the other 7 children whose lives are now affected because mom decided to just whatever it is. We have to pray for the world at large because the world truly needs God and it doesn't even recognize. And the more we pray, the more lives will change.
Amen. 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 Thank you. Shantice, how are we wrapping this up?
Pay attention. Pay attention to what's needed. You're not paying attention to what's needed in these schools. That's why the obvious move of having metal detectors are not in place. You're not paying attention to, again, the benefits you weren't, and now we're just getting bumped up. And you're not paying attention to your responsibilities nor your children, and that's why it was just like a no-brainer to just leave them and think you could go do whatever, whether it was something good or something bad. Just pay attention to what your desires are. Pay attention to how God is showing you the consequence, because he's going to let you know that ain't a good idea. I don't think you really want to consider that. But us as people, we just pushed past because we know better. We got the plan with no plan. We got everything. And thank God in these 3 instances, there were no fatalities, because that's not the normal ending of the story. The normal end of the story is someone got shot, stabbed, something, ran over by a car, they died, this one happened. Thank God there weren't any. And, God's grace said, I'm going to let it go this far just so it can be a wake up. My grace says I'm not going to let anyone have to worry or at least suffer to the point of death, but they're suffering all because you're not paying attention. Pay attention. Your ways, 9 times out of 10, is not the right way. Just pay attention to what God is showing you, and you'll make better decisions.
All righty. Amen. Thank you so much, ladies, for your contribution into today's conversation. And we pray you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
What are we talking about today? We're talking about us failing our children big time. Really failing our children. What are we thinking about? Nothing. We're not thinking about the right thing. Our thoughts are redirected into the toilet, where you could care less about the safety of our children. You could care less about the safety of others. You really are self-centered. And, we read a verse, I think it was Monday, about, being lovers of yourself and arrogant and, all kinds of different levels of deterioration, where all of the descriptives led to, again, being self-centered. It starts off lovers of themselves, and it just ran this gamut of things that people do and the way people think, and that's what we're talking about now. That's what we're talking about now. I have said a million times, invitations to church are no longer invitations. God is calling you. It is not this, oh, come on to church on Sunday or come on to church on Sabbath. No, it's not an invitation. God has taken the time to call your name. You know, Shanti says it all the time. It is only by the mercy and grace of God that this is not one of us here in these stories, whether we're the perpetrator or the victim. But let's talk about being the perpetrator. It is only by the mercy and grace of God that we have not deteriorated to stooping to these levels. Because if you were to speak to mom who had 8 kids before she had 8 kids, she would never tell you that this was the life she had planned for her children. This is the life that she had planned for herself, that she does not love her children. It's only a rare occasion that we would get what we got on Monday's story, where the woman said that she was torturing the 4-month-old little girl because she wasn't a boy. That's a rare occasion. But most people, they say they love their kids. So you couldn't ever tell her that she would never stoop to this. And when she got jammed up, her first out was, I don't have any kids. Because it was probably embarrassing to even admit that this is what you were doing and you actually got caught doing it. You could never tell this director of college financial affairs that he would be here. He is engaged to this woman, the love of his life, and he's anticipating that they are going to get married, and he's inherited this daughter, and they're going to live a nice life with his nice salary and his prestigious seat and his ability to make decisions and so forth and so on. You could never tell him he actually endangered the life of an 18-year-old and misdirected the lives of a 23 and a 20-year-old. The very lives that he's in the college trying to save and direct. You could never tell him he would stoop to this level. We don't know how long he's had it, but let's say he had the job for about 10, 12 years. You could never tell him that this would be him. So if you were to talk to one of us, we would say, that would never be me. But look at where they are now. It's only by the mercy and grace of God this is not one of us. How many times somebody that made you so mad you wish you had a gun you could play Russian roulette? Come on, ladies. How many times he done made you that mad that if you had a gun, you would have just shot him. You wouldn't have even have been a Russian roulette. But if you wanted to torture him, yeah, you would have done something like that. It's only just a hairline between them and us. Where are we going to be? Where are we going to stand? Where are we going to remain? Well, then, unless your foundation is the firm foundation of God and Jesus, you ain't got no guarantees. Because how many times we do something, we go, how could I have been so dumb? And this is as a Christian. I'm not talking about the non-believer. I'm talking about those of us who call ourselves in the family of God. There is no way you have never been at a point where you were like, dang, ooh, I thought like that. Even if it was for a split second. But only by the mercy and grace of God, you didn't stay there. Only by the mercy and grace of God, somebody called. Only by the mercy and grace of God, somebody knocked on that door. Only by the mercy and grace of God, you didn't have the money to do what you wanted to do, or you didn't have the access to do what you wanted to do. What was going on in your head? How many times have people said that they've done something wrong and say, but I ain't no bad person. qualifies you being a bad or a good person, because the Bible clearly tells us that there's nothing in and of ourselves where we can speak or boast about what we do. If not for the mercy and grace of God, and that's a believer or a non-believer, the rain falls on the just as well as the unjust. He keeps. How many times has he kept us as a non-believer, and now we're on this side of the fence? Because had he not kept us as a believer, we would have been in jail, we would have been dead, we would have been running from the law, we would have been in hiding, we would have been doing something, we would have been somewhere, we would have been in a frame of mind where we would have been cuckoo and doing all kinds of dumb things, if not for the mercy and grace of God. We were where they were some way, somehow. And this is why the petition is made so hard now. Because there's nothing that says once saved, always saved. There is nothing that stops you from being them, us from being them, if not for the Lord himself, who says, no, not her. No, not him. No, not now. No, not ever, because I got a plan for that life. And in order for that plan to come to fruition, I got to be in control of this thing. I got to, I may let her get her feet wet in punishment or in sin, but I can't let her sink to the degree that I could, because she would never make it out unless I dragged her out. Only by the mercy and grace of God, we're not these people. Only by the mercy and grace of God that we're not the victims here. How many of us could have been one of those 8 kids? And our parents only had 2. Doesn't mean that they're not just as bad as those who have had 8. But God kept that parent's head together, or that uncle or auntie or grandma or neighbor or friend just snatching the child before it became detrimental, before it got to it could be that bad. Somebody said to me, who was raised by someone who, they always, thought very highly of. Let's put it like that. Thought very highly of, raised by a parent, and said to me one day, my family moved around so much till one day they forgot to tell me they were moving. And when I went home from school, I ended up at the old place. It was no longer the place where we were still living. And that's how much we moved around. And this is a person that, again, they thought very highly of, and they weren't smashing the person. But the point I'm trying to make is, anything could happen. Anything could have happened. We chuckle, we laugh, you're like, whoo. But how many times has God stepped in to make sure we weren't the victim? I thought about my sister and I. We were kids and we were visiting a family member, and we went they lived in Harlem, and we went to the building. We went to the store, and when we came back, we went into the building. And it wasn't until we kind of went up the stairs that we realized that we were in the wrong building. And the building was abandoned. And I don't know what made this come to my mind the other day. And I just shivered. And I said, oh my God. During that time, people were on heroin and drugs and all kinds of things. And my sister and I could have easily become victims. just by mistakenly walking up into the wrong building. I don't even know if she remembers that. And I mean, I can actually see the building now. We were kids. When I tell you we were kids, I couldn't have been no more than about 6, 7, if even that old. Because back in the day, it was nothing for you to let your kid go to the store. It wasn't the abductions and all that stuff was not at the level. But when you think about it, stuff did happen at that time. But we were in a fully abandoned building. And like I said, it wasn't until we went up the stairs. And I'm like, anybody could have been in that building and killed us or raped us or, anything could have happened. But God, but God who said not them, but God who said no, but God who said I need to protect her. Little did I know at 59, God spares in a month or so, I would be here with you right now. And I would have given birth to one of the due time crew members. All because God said not now, not ever, no. How many times has he saved us from being the victim? That little boy running in that parking lot, 5 something in the morning, and it's dark outside, below a truck, who could have easily been driving through and hit him because he didn't see him. He was below the front of the truck. Only by the mercy and grace of God. And I say that because I remember my mother, there was a picture of me, a little girl, I couldn't have been no more than about 2. And I said, was with a young girl, must have been maybe about 12. And I said to my mother, I said, what happened to her? Who is that? She said, her name is so-and-so. Her name was so-and-so. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, somebody threw her off of a roof. See what I'm talking about? See what I'm talking about? Took her and threw her off a roof. But God said no to Stephanie and Terry. Is there a call on your life? And that's why God is saying no. That you are not the perpetrator nor the victim. Is it why God is preserving your life? Because he needs you to work for him. But you have no idea, but he just keeps preserving you. Because there's some greatness inside of you that he must preserve you for, because if he doesn't, you'll never get there. Because you'll mean more to those who you speak to than you would if you were dead. Because he says, who can praise me from the grave? Once you're dead, you're dead. Nothing anyone can do with you. And you can't do anything for anybody. Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you a recipient of these words? Even if today is your first day, even if you never come back, why are you here today? Because there's something that was said. There's something that's being said. Why do you keep coming back? There's something in it for you. And it's more than entertainment. It's more than laughs. It's more than amusement. Why is he trying to save you? It's not just so that you can make it into the kingdom. It's not that. It's not that. Because at that point, the only thing we'll be doing is glorifying and worshiping and praising God. There ain't going to be no living at that point. So that's all when you go up there, people got jobs, and it ain't what we describe as work. What we do now matters. because his goal is to get as many into the kingdom as he can. Now, I'm not saying he's recruiting. It's a different recruitment. It's a different recruitment. But our goal is to disciple others so that they can disciple others. Why are you here? Why has he preserved you? If you start thinking about all the shoulda, coulda, and wouldas, how God, why God, when God, it ain't for naught. It's not for naught. There is a call on your life. And let God know that you belong to him, and you appreciate the fact that up to this point, it has not been you, and you're going to make a conscious decision to give your life to him, because you clearly understand that it is him who has kept it from being you. Just go over back in the recess of your mind and think about how many times this could have been you, either side, perpetrator or victim. How just that one false move of anybody could have cost you your life, whether it was a life behind bars or could have cost you your life being on this side of the grave. Why? Don't leave without asking why. Don't leave without asking God to accept you right now, because you're tired of asking why. You're tired of hoping that it won't be you, because you realize that as long as you belong to the enemy, because baby, God has made it very clear, you either belong to me or you belong to this world. As long as you belong to the world, you have no say. Because we ain't got no say when we don't belong to the world. So you really ain't got no say when you belong to the world. Let God know you tired. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you're really getting ready. You ready. You really ready to do this thing. I'm tired. I'm tired, God. And I'm ready for you to take the wheel. I'm ready to just give it up to you. Because I don't want to find myself in the paper, whether I can read about me or not, or somebody else is reading about me in past tense. That's why we're here today, to help you understand that we don't know when our last breath is. So take advantage of this moment and come on this side of the fence. You will not regret it. You've been watching It's Due Time with Pastor Steph. Join us Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. where we discuss matters of the heart, mind, and spirit. As you go through your day, be sure to set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. They will only serve as a distraction. Remember, prayer changes things. It's Pastor Steph signing off, and I want to thank my Due Time crew, the ladies, for always coming through big time. Thank you for hanging out with us and keeping that chat room alive. Please do not miss this opportunity to give Christ your life right now. Please do not miss this opportunity to strengthen that relationship with the Lord right now, because later does not belong to any of us. Until tomorrow, God spares. Where is Therapeutic Thursday? Until then, I love